Good afternoon to everyone, and we would like to welcome you again for this For Industrial Revolution webinar series. We will continue today with the fifth session of this special series. I will share my screen now. Today we will talk about, the main title of this session will be the potential of big data and mobile platforms for value chain upgrading of small-scale fisheries. This will allow us to embark on the deep concepts and theories related to these technologies in the application, in particular in one of the most interesting sectors where UNIDO is working, particularly for developing countries. And for this occasion, we have invited the following panelists. We have Mr. Luis Diaz, is the head of business development, sustainable management of fisheries from the VU CLS group. With his experience working in North America, Africa, Latin America, and Europe, he's well versed in both global strategy and local implementation. In his work at CLS, he supports fisheries ministries, regional commissions, and fishing fleet owners as they scale up to more sustainable fisheries management. With a master's degree in engineering, he's passionate about ensuring a more sustainable future through technology innovation, developing products in close with fisheries. We also will have Mr. Caro Carissa Harrison from the World Fish country. He's the World Fish country director for Egypt and Nigeria, and the secretary for the African chapter of the World Aquaculture Society. Previously, as a scientist in fish genetics at World Fish, and director of Fisheries Resources Development and Marketing at the State Department of Fisheries and Blue Economy, and also director of the National Aquaculture Research, Development and Training Center in Kenya. Currently, he is engaged in research leadership to strengthen livelihoods and enhance food and nutrition security by improving fisheries and aquaculture. We will also have Mr. Manfred Bohrer. He is the Chief Executive Director of Cultiva AG. Cultiva AG is an integrated agriculture technology company that provides tailor-made software, solutions, and services for end-to-end business processes. As CEO, Manfred is leading the board of directors, and it's in charge of business development and the product development units in PT Cultiva Jakarta, developing new products and services and building a sustainable and satisfied client base. And last but not least, we will be having also our colleague Juliet Cabet. Juliet is an Industrial Development Officer in Sustainable Food System Division in Agro Business Department. Juliet has joined the department at UNIDO headquarters in 2011. Ever since, she managed technical cooperation projects and programs focusing on areas related to small-scale fisheries and agribusiness, institutional building, and advice on food industry-related processes and technical solutions. Her work has also increasingly focusing now on emerging global issues such as climate adaptation action, sustainable land and water-based food systems, gender, and fisheries. For today, we will be talking more on the application of these 4IR technologies in a specific sector, in fisheries, particularly considering accelerating digitalization trends and in the global fishing industry are unlocking new levels of profitability and sustainability. Yeah, the convergence of these 4 IR technologies are rising also affordability of these technologies and expanding the boundaries for inclusion, particularly in a sector like this. Yeah, solar power devices in combination with increasingly cost-effective sensors can track the movement of small vessels, yeah, and provide near to real-time information. Aided by big data or also Internet of Things, advanced sensors, they can also improve catch monitoring, upturn traceability, and added value products. Our external invited panelists will provide further insights on the potential of these digital technologies, big data and Internet of Things, particularly in a small scale fisheries with the, I mean, more related to our digital transformation support that we want to bring for our member states. Small and medium-sized enterprises, industry in general, but also institutions, support institutions and governments in their strategies. Juliet Cabbage also will talk about the challenges and opportunities of the integration of these digital technologies to improve efficiency of small scale fisheries, particularly considering the challenges and risks for UNIDO projects in developing countries. Yeah. The session has been organized in a way that we will be having a round of presentations, initial presentation for each of the panelists, and later on we will address some specific questions for each of them. For all attendees to this seminar, we would like to encourage you to put your questions in the chat function, and if we don't have time to answer that, then we will also come back to you with the presentations copies and also with the response to these questions. For your information, today we are recording also this webinar session, and we will be making the recording available through our knowledge hub in the DTA directory. We will also be sharing the presentation as I mentioned to you. So having said that, I will give the floor to our first speaker, Mr. Luis Diaz. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So thanks to UNIDO for the invitation. I will share my presentation in a few minutes. So I'm glad to be here to speak about the potential of big data and wide platform for the value chain upgrading of small-scale fisheries. My name is Luis Diaz, and I'm part of CLS Fisheries Division. So to add value to this chain, we need to overcome some challenges in the small-scale fisheries. The first one is to, of course, having a frame of regulation so we can install the technologies. This is to support, of course, small-scale fisheries and understand them to gather the right information. This have been stressed by the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and with the aim of ending IUU by 2030. By doing so, we truly believe that it will put SSF into the plans to build a stronger blue economy plans. Something that we need to have in mind is that SSF accounts for 50% of global fish catches, 90% of the 120 million for people employed in fisheries, and 80% of the world are fishing vessels. We also have to overcome some challenges to tech adoption. Here, for instance, the first one is fishermen's reluctancy to change the way of life, the low incomes that they have, the education level, the great diversity of vessels, the huge number of SSF vessels, which we count on thousands, the fact that there is no power supply on board, so we cannot replicate what we have been doing in the industrial segment, and the fact there is no warranty of mobile coverage, so we cannot just develop some mobile application to support them. So we need more. We also have complex economic and social issues. The first one is the absence of safety notions. Then the traceability, the fact there is no traceability in that segment. There's not added value for export. There's no notion of export when we talk about SSF. There is no fishing ground allocated to SSF. We should enhance the empowerment of traditional communities through, of course, this big data and this technology that we bring into the market. And we have to understand the fishing effort so we can have a better understanding of the stock and the allocations. And there is where the potential of big data and mobile platform are interesting. Interesting because they can support SSF. But first of all, we need to understand what we're talking about when we speak about big data and when we speak about analytics. So big data is basically a huge amount of data that are coming from different sources. Analytics are algorithms that we're applying to have a pattern and understanding of the data. In this case, if we speak about SSF and we want to understand how it works, so first of all, the first question that we need to ask is what kind of information I want to receive, okay? And how I want to add value to that information. We have here different sources of information related to SSF. First information could be the VMS information, which is the vessel monitoring system. Then we also have the information related to the catches or the information related to the oceanography. We also could include information related to the automatic identification system that could all be merged into one system. But before doing so, we need to be sure that this system that could be the FMC, the Fisheries Monitoring Center, is able to process that information. To be able to process that information, we need a system that is able to process a huge amount of volume, the variety of the data, the velocity on which we want to base our analysis. And then when applying the analytics, that the system is able to double check the veracity of the data and add the right value to take the right decisions. And this is what we try to do through our system here. What you see on the screen is our FMC called Themis, and the different points and dots that you received in that system are, first of all, the information where are those vessels, and then we can run some patterns to detect the behavior of the vessel. Is these vessels are these vessels fishing? Are they doing some transshipment? Are they respecting, their fishing grounds? Are they doing the right fishing effort as per the license that we gave them? So those are some outcomes that can be received, let's say, from the integration of big data analytics into the FMC. And this is only the side when we look into big data in the compliancy part. But we cannot pretend, let's say, to have the engagement of fishermen if we don't provide some added value for them or to them. And this is why we try to provide through our Marlin Pro application, which is an application that is able, let's say, to give an amount of information to the fisherman that is valuable. In this case, the fisherman is able to interact with the authority by receiving some alerts related to the weather, related to the licensing. He's able to double check the status of the beacon, the transmission of the data. He's able also to have information of his location at any time and share that information with his family. So we're enhancing safety by doing so, he will be able, let's say, to retrack, let's say, the port of destination, and he also can log their catches into the Marlin Pro, so he can start the value chain of traceability, and we can build, let's say, a process to export the fish. Another value that can be done through a mobile platform is the fact of creating a marketplace, so fishermen can increase margin and have a better earning. We have tested our big data platform and the combination with the transmitter, which you see here in this slide, is called NEMO, and the mobile application. Through this project called Starfish, is a European project that the aim is to encourage adoptions of digital tools by fishermen. Thanks to NEMO and thanks to this project, we were able, let's say, to double check that the need was focused to a true VMS, because the coverage of mobile, let's say, the mobile coverage were not enough, let's say, to have all the information transmitted at the right time. So we put inside some IoT connections, some IoT transmission to be able, say, to transmit data at any time. Also, we were able to double check the kind of platform that we're putting to these fishermen, so that can be simple. So, because most part of them are not educated. And at the end, the conclusion of this project was that all that devices shall be affordable. So if I want to give you some takeaway points of these short presentations, that accurate information is the first step to taking decisions. Big data may involve a cultural shift. Technology must be adapted to small-scale fisheries. Big data analytics offer a vital insight for managing fisheries, and very important, data sharing will upgrade the value chain of SSF. So in CLS, we truly believe that connecting, protecting, empowering SSF with technology will bring value to the whole fisheries chain. Thank you very much to you all.
Thank you very much, Luis, for this very nice and comprehensive presentation. Yeah, this is. I think the images are very good. Thank you for introducing us on the basics of the technologies related to big data and platforms, digital platforms use, particularly the information analytics that is associated and the potential benefits that they have for developing countries, and the results of this very interesting projects that you are running. So with that, we will continue with the round of presentations. I will leave the floor now to Mr. Caro Cariza. Thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Good evening. I'm going to be presenting on potential of digital technologies in small-scale fisheries of developing countries with a focus on Africa. When we started this webinar, the dates were that I was going to be still the candidate of World Fish, but now from the 30th of September, I'm no longer working with World Fish. So this is something I think is important for people to note. For that reason, I'm not using the logos for any of these the organization, the World Fish Organization. As many of us may know, small-scale fisheries is a very big player in fish production within the continent of Africa. It accounts for about 60% of the fish production in the continent. 10 million Africans rely on small-scale fisheries for primary livelihoods. And also around 90 million people depend on fishing as part of a diversified livelihood, where it includes them going to fishing, processing of the fish, trading, and all those activities that go go around the value chain, including cooling systems and so on. We have more than 200 million people who rely on fish as an affordable source of protein and important micronutrients, especially the small fishes that are cheaper for many to afford. And the bulk of this fish will be mainly small pelagics. Like, for example, you have omena in Lake Victoria region that is quite commonly used, which will be used as animal feed in other places. And because of the kind of people we are dealing with, the numbers of the fishermen and so on, there is substantial governance challenges that are very important for us to talk about today. The issues at hand, we all know that fisheries management is really an important component to reduce overfishing. But sometimes the legislation that we have on the mesh sizes actually interfere a lot with the small pelagics, and these are again where the small scale fisheries, the capture fisheries people would be able to go and use. And so, because of trying to stop people from fishing the large sizes fish, sometimes also it affects the way the small pelagics are harvested, which is a disadvantage. Again, the other issue that we have a multi-fishery species complication within the continent because of the fact that this is a tropical, most of it is tropical, and therefore getting a good reliable data consistently on fishery resources becomes a problem because of the sheer number of the species that are involved. Again, we also now, of course, we have in the world high resolution spatial and temporal fisheries data, but getting this thing is not easy, especially given that there's very little investment in this area. Again, the tools that are available, we could use this for faster reporting and so on. But again, this requires a proper processing facilities, and these usually sometimes are not possible to have, especially around real-time responses. Now, one of the things that we learned from sustainable industrial fisheries is that what they have managed to do there is also possible to do within the small-scale fisheries, but there are certain things that we need to look at. So what we learn here is that we need to really improve the reliability and the ease of collection of data from the small-scale fisheries, and ensuring that the data that we get is fair, is findable, is accessible, interoperable, and reusable for a different number of actors. And this has usually been a challenge because the sharing of these data becomes a big problem, because of lack of trust and so on. The analysis of data, as I said, is a big issue, but this again nothing that we can learn that is possible to do because of the fact that the industrial fisheries have actually gone ahead beyond what the small-scale fisheries have done. We need also to be able to integrate data solutions into management. One of the things that we have learned, and we have seen this in many parts of Africa, that data is being collected, but it is not necessarily being used to manage the fisheries. So that data is maybe collected by the scientists and it's kept by the scientists, and it's not actually accessible to the fisheries managers. And this is becoming a big problem, especially for small-scale fisheries. And therefore, it's important that we also look at the monitoring and control that happens in the field, which should be based on the availability of that data. Now, this, of course, Luis has mentioned the issues of vessel monitoring systems that are in place. So it's very important to be able to use this also to see what are the sea conditions, what are the catch data, and so on, because it helps us to realize, the same development in small-scale fisheries. There's a big potential for use of technology in small-scale fisheries. There is some work that has been done by several people. One of those was reported by Colding et al. 2019, where he's showing that echograms of Carpenter and Lake Kariba were able to really stratify the waters to show where fishermen should fish. That there's no point of them putting their nets in the bottom because that's anoxic areas, and therefore there isn't much that you can get from there. So we need to be able to use this kind of possibilities in a wider scale. One of the things that is of course lacking is that some of the models that the fishermen are using do not really have reliable data because it is far and scattered. we need a concerted effort that would be to be able to help the fishermen to lower their catch effort and reduce bycatch by being able to target the areas where they need to go for fishing. We have mentioned, I think Luis has mentioned, issues of problems of energy use, and solar powers is becoming a big issue now that can be used to solve some of these issues that we have, because most of the areas in Africa are exposed to all year round sunshine, which will be very useful for solar powered systems. And ecograms with water quality data helps us to actually predict the stock health, and it can inform fishing patterns. So where would people go fishing? This is very important data that we can actually get. But again, as I said before, we need to be able to use our institutional capacities to ensure that that is not just done in small pockets of the lake, of the lakes. Now, another technology that is actually gaining ground is what we call the Internet of Things. This is a system that is normally very useful when it comes to our fishermen being able to, fishermen and also fishers being able to monitor the water quality and the stocks that they have in the lake. But also this is also quite important for small-scale fisheries in ponds, because they're able to use this Internet of Things to monitor water temperatures, pH, and other values in ponds. This helps because with the sensor that you have, it can be very easy for farmers to connect with the Android phones and actually being able to monitor their ponds from very far away, and it helps them to lower costs in terms of operation. We have seen this being happening all across Africa, and we have a good example of this happening in Kenya, in the hatcheries, in Burkina Faso, and many others. So it's something that is within reach. The other important thing that we can also look at, which Luis has mentioned to some extent, is how we can use our technologies to track, the vessel tracking systems. Basically, this should be solar powered because of the impossibility of getting electricity near some of these landing sites. And so you can see in this particular diagram that we have this tracking system is showing where farmers, the fishermen are going to fish. You can also see where there is a high density of fishers. And then you realize that when these high densities are in such places, it tells you that there is probably some more stocks in that particular place. This helps us when it comes to managing of the lake. This particular example I'm showing is done in Timor-Leste by one of the world fish scientists, Mr. Tilly Alex, and he has also he's now trialing this same thing in Egypt and Nigeria. And he's using a system that we are calling ultralight pelagic data systems. And this is a tracking system that is basically tracking small vessels at sea. And the whole idea is to be able to use things that are similar to what we are doing industrially to ensure that we can now find more data that is more reliable. And then we also should be able to get clear management coordination protocols for this particular work. One of the things that we found as we were using this work was that some of the governments, especially the ones in Nigeria and other African countries, are really worried about the data sharing, who owns this data, and so they are worried whether this could jeopardize their fishermen and so on. And of course, so these are big concerns that I'll come back to later, that we need to look at as a way forward to enable us to make use of the technologies in a more efficient manner. The other issue that is quite important now that is coming up is that we are using mobile network applications. These mobile network applications, they are quite useful in helping us to monitor. It could be at the market level. So for example, we have within Egypt, we have what we call ASMACnet. The ASMACnet system is a value chain marketing digital network that was developed between World Fish and Bashir network. Now, this is a network that is started with agriculture in mind, but eventually went into to be used for to get information across the board with farmers, fish farmers as well. And so what is happening here is that this ASMACnet uses mobile data and the web applications so that the fish sector can be able to link the seller and the buyer and provide information on market prices and extension services. This information, of course, is collected at real time from the markets, and the farmers are able now to use this particular facility to improve on the knowledge of how much they can sell their fish on, because this is one of the biggest issues. Many times the traders also don't know where the fish is. So to connect these traders is quite important, especially if you look at the industry in Egypt, where most of the activity, most of the fish comes from the aquaculture section, or 90% of which is coming from aquaculture. And of course, this is a good thing, but it has a lot of challenges because the infrastructure is not very well done. And so it is quite important to be able to easily connect the trader and the farmer so that they can go and be able to buy at the right place. And also the farmer should be able to know what is the market price in different markets, so that they can be able to send their fish to the right markets. So this is an important thing that we have been using this also as a tool to teach farmers and traders, especially the women fish traders, on how they can access information on recipes, access information on ability to improve their production at pond level, to access information on the pricing at a daily, every day, and also being able to access real-time telephone, people that can talk to them in case they have a need that they can be taught on. Another thing that I'll mention briefly is what we call the Samaki mobile application. This is used to monitor fish pond condition. It collects data and relays the information to the farmer in real time again, which is a relief to farmers who can now control their fish pond at any time, anywhere they are. The other information that has been used is what we call the Enhanced Fish Market Information System. This is an ICT pilot project that was started some years back in Kenya, and it is basically again helping the fishermen to get data on daily market prices so that they can know where to go. And this is done through SMS system. So how do we get these things right going into the future? As I said, there are quite a number of issues that can come in here. So we need to be able to think about a digital and mobile telephone system. We know the potential that there is, but how do we make this thing work? The issue that of access to networks, for example, are important to look at here. Improved data collection is required so that we can value the economics of scale of these fisheries. Another thing is that the solar-powered vessel monitoring systems that are in place should be made even easier and affordable, so that the farmers and fishers the fishers should be able to take them given their own advantages. And also it's important to integrate data analysis and management using the big data and learning systems that are in place, so that again this data can be available for sharing. Using identification system and licensing for boat and crew must be done in a way that the farmers don't feel alienated, because sometimes they feel like it's being used for punitive purposes. And the other thing that I would say, 2 more points, is that we need to have a database of small-scale fisheries accessible to research support and management. There's no point of collecting this data if it's not going to be accessible. And the important issue lastly is that we need to have policy formulation that encourages more digital technology use. Without proper policies, all our efforts in technology development will come to nothing, because there are quite a few issues that that might actually stop us from using this data unless the policy also comes along to support this work. So policy is very important, and we would want to really to encourage that governments should be on board as we develop the different technologies that are quite useful to make a change in the fisheries, the small-scale fisheries in Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Harrison. Thank you for this very relevant presentation, particularly for showing us all these technologies on their affordability at this stage and how they can be very useful for sustainable industrial fisheries. Yeah, we will come back to you in one of the questions related to the policy frameworks that we may need to put in place if we want to foster these applications. Thank you. I will go now with the third presentation. Mr. Manfred Borer, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and good evening from Jakarta. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak here on this webinar, and I would like to introduce Cultiva and the work with Dawn together with UNIDO to introduce seaweed trace and inspired in small-scale fisheries here in Indonesia. So we started the seaweed trace development in about 2 years ago together with UNIDO and 8 suppliers and 1 multinational off-taker, a buyer in Indonesia with 1 sector association. And from the learning and this application of this software and cloud-based software in seaweed in Indonesia, we expanded it already to 2 suppliers, which we are now currently in setting up in the Philippines. 1 supplier already using the whole system as well for almost more than 1 year by now. 3 suppliers in Chile will be onboarded in early 2021. And the application we provide is a web mobile-based application hosted on AWS across the world in 3 clustered servers. UNIDO, based in Vienna, and also other field offices have access to the web dashboards based on clients' consents. How does it work? How to build up an inclusive supply chain and value chain from farm to factory? We deployed different mobile applications. So it's not like a super app for everyone which does everything. We segregated the applications based on the need. So field agents and extension staffs, they're using the farm extension application. With that application, they can map every producer and collect farmer profiles, social and environmental profiles. They can take polygons of ponds or plantations, or in case of fisheries, to provide also the GPS from fishery grounds. Then it goes to the farmer itself, the farmers, the fishers. We call it the Farm Cloud. It's an application for the producers to access inputs, so they can buy online inputs for their farms and their ponds, and they receive farm development plans, access to finance, and access to knowledge. They can also receive notifications directly from the Farm Gate application, which is used by traders, cooperatives, off-takers, up to processing factories, who they upload daily prices into the Farm Gate application, so all the farmers get up-to-date information of the market. Through the Farm Cloud, they can select and chat with these traders and collectors, agree on the price and pickup schedules, for example. We also have a farm retail application, which is for cooperatives, agri-input shops, fertilizers, pesticides, also long lines. Any kind of inputs can be bought online through this application and distributed to farmers and other suppliers. Then, as mentioned before, the Farm Gate application is used by cooperatives, buying stations, collectors, traders, up to processing factories, and through that application we verify and guarantee 100% segregated supply chains, full traceable individual sales from farm to factories. Then we have the Inspired software, which is based on an Excel model built by UNIDO, which we built into a web platform and also added a mobile application that works on smartphones or on tablets for processing companies. With all this information from farm to factory, the manufacturers, off-takers, buyers, or even UNIDO as a program implementer or donor, they have access to all those data through the web application, where we also provide big data analysis and satellite mapping solutions. Data collection happens with Android phones. We released now as well the first iPhone application to a client in Coco, working in Ecuador and Ivory Coast, as their agronomists actually using iPads. But normally everything we build is on Android platform. Everything works online, offline, as you might be aware, in rural areas in Indonesia and other parts of the world. There is no access to internet connection, therefore everything has to work offline. So field agents, extension staff, or NGOs, whoever is involved in data collection, using the farm extension application to conduct farm interviews and mapping plots. Whenever they're back into their office or into the village or a city, they can synchronize the data with our cloud, and the management team has access then through the web application to those farmer profiles. After everything is mapped, you have it on the maps here, but also access to any kind of other data, dashboards, demographics, traceability, and premium calculations, knowledge, pest and disease management. So it's an endless list of features built into the web application, which helps our clients to better manage their sustainability or their responsible business project they are implementing across their global value chains, and to improve resilience for their suppliers. The farm gate application, which ends then as well in a web application to see where your product's coming from, with a kind of a spider diagram. So on this diagram here, the spider maps, where you click on a trader, a collector, and then it explodes into the green dots you see there on the screen, which are individual farm locations. So farmers selling to a buying station, and the first point of sale, the transaction must be registered. Again, it can be online or offline. Mostly it's offline. At these buying stations, they go back in the evening or end of the week, delivered to the next level, aggregation level within the supply chain, and synchronize the data to the cloud. Now, here we have the inspired solution. Basically, we have released the seaweed trace application now to 15 clients. We are building now fish trace and shrimp trace, which follow the same scheme. So from fish to factory, data collection through mobile applications, from suppliers through buying station to the factory. Then within the processing factories, we have the internal traceability to connect to the external traceability from the single commodity platform, where a company can completely manage their internal processes of receiving the goods, tailor-made based on request, batches, deliver those batches, processing, mixing it, and dispatch the final products to a client. If you have a small smartphone at your hand, you can scan that small QR code here on the screen. And this is an example of coffee trays, where a batch of 600 kilo got sold to Switzerland, to a roaster who sells it for the Christmas market, a special edition of transparent and inclusive coffee. In seaweed, shrimps, fish, we're going to establish a similar system where every batch coming out of a factory is 100% traceable through processing, manufacturing, and collection back to the farm where it has been produced. That's it from my side. And back to Alejandro. I assume we have more time for question later.
Thank you very much, Manfred, particularly for showing us an entire overview of this ecosystem, considering all the actors of the value chain, and particularly the technology applications. Yeah, I just would like to add that if our colleagues needs more information on these applications, and particularly how is the engagement with a UNIDO project, you can ask our colleagues Stephen Kesser, yeah, and Nima, which are in charge for this UNIDO project related to the Global Quality Standards Program for Indonesia. Without delay, we go now for our last presenter, our colleague Julie. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, colleagues, for this session. As you can see from the topic, I'm speaking on the theme of challenges and opportunities for integration of digital technologies to improve the efficiency of small-scale fisheries. We've heard from the past speakers, and thank you co-panelists for the real engaging sessions. We've had some concrete innovations that have been presented in the by the earlier speakers. We also know the insights that have focused on innovations such as traceability of licensing schemes, vessel monitoring, MCS, monitoring, control and surveillance mechanisms that target different levels of intervention. We see actions that are taking global collective action. We also see regional and sub-regional actions and also national actions. These are mainly looking at also resource management. I will make my introduction by also saying that what we see from the presentations also that I'll make, which will highlight the work that UNIDO has done that could be relevant to this area. First of all, since I'm talking about challenges and opportunities, we see a fairly missing middle of the innovations we're listening to, for instance, mainly focusing on the resource side and also the marketing side. So in the first place, we see great opportunity of focusing also on an entire kind of value chain, holistic value chain perspective. And especially for my team coming from the Department of Agribusiness, the post-harvest, what we're calling the post-harvest management segment, and also the facilitating access to competitive markets. And then which brings me to my presentation on what opportunities are there in these areas for small-scale fisheries. The colleagues have also already presented, I think from Luis, the global perspective of why small-scale fisheries are critical, for growth, for economic development, and also for food and nutritional security, as well as for sustainability of the oceans and fishery stocks. Harrison brought it down to the continent, the African continent, so this really gives us a perspective. But the message has been clear, basically, that this is a very important value chain or production segment in the fisheries sector. So most of the production, we had over 90% comes from small-scale fisheries. Over 2/3 of the food security returns come from this sector. We also noticing why this, the aspect of, let's say, digital technologies should be seen as an opportunity is we're seeing a growing demand for seafood and fisheries supplies, not just quality and safety, but also sustainable. So seafood growth demand is projected to continue growing. Production from the capture fisheries, we've also heard from colleagues, is stagnating as wild fisheries and stocks and species are being disseminated. In the same context, we've seen some initiatives that small-scale fisheries have taken advantage of to harness growth opportunities. And again, previous speakers have spoken about this. And so in the next slide, I'll just bring us back to this presentation, which I found very interesting. This slide came, the upper part of this slide came from the presentation by our managing director on the very first introduction of this webinar series, where we say basically the discussion we're having in these sessions is looking at the towards, progression towards society 4.0, society 4.5. And I said, okay, let's map the small scale fisheries value chain, which is the lower part, which is my only addition. And what does it tell us actually? From all the presentations you've had, you still see kind of a dominance of society 1.0. And this is the leap we're talking about. Small scale fishing is still a hunting sector. It's still not, it's only progressed to 2.0 in terms, and 3.0 in terms of agriculture and industry, mainly driven by aquaculture, but not really the marine or the inland small scale fisheries. So I just wanted to use this slide, as colleagues are kind to share it, to set our perspective. Now, we've also seen, based on the previous one, we've seen an evolving development of market mechanisms, and especially those that are related to regulatory controls and standards. Many of us have spoken about traceability. Now, what do we see as the challenge here? And the title here is we're talking about tech challenges, specifically tech challenges. The point I would like to underline here is the disintermediation of the value chains in the first place, and with that comes the same disintermediation of data. Now you've had the other challenges that, you've had the idea of less integrated data, more scattered and less knowledge sharing dominating this segment. Now, so we understood that digital solutions could indeed might actually risk to expand the gaps of subsistence fishing and, compromise the catch-up from hunting to an inclusive society. FAO makes this reference in most of their most recent state of the fisheries and aquaculture reports, the SOFIA reports. We also note, especially from UNIDO, that emerging technology solutions in industry can be an enabler to empower the most vulnerable communities. Again, I highlighted in the prior discussion the importance of small-scale fisheries sectors that is at the same time characterized by poor data collection, and where data is available, it's also not optimally, let's say, utilized in the right conditions. We also see limited information flow. Colleagues who have shared experiences have indicated why what you see as challenging elements here, why they're important in the quick adoption and use of digital solutions that are being put forward. I'll go to the next slide if it helps. So we mapped out a couple of projects that UNIDO has globally. These are really just indicative. It's not an exhaustive list. And what it shows here is the different issues and the different contexts that most of our development work, but also generally that the fisheries sector production takes place. So you have elements here which are looking at export facilitation, you're looking at local value chain strengthening, you're also looking at resource management, that's like the project, for instance, in the Sudan. You're looking at bridging all these aspects of post-harvest management, and you're also looking at post-harvest improvements. Now, what does this tell us? What we would like to move this discussion towards is basically a scenario where we engage more in terms of leveraging the solutions that we're hearing to build more holistic value chains. So what we call the backward and forward linkages, we think could benefit from, from the advantage of data, including big data, digitalization, and other solutions, like mobile solutions that have been presented. How are these examples relevant? So on this screen, the ones I've highlighted, that I highlighted in color code, are the ones that I probably go into just to set the context or the scene of what UNIDO does in a whole range. The ones on the first one, Indonesia, has been presented, I think, in the prior presentation by Manfred, though not just one aspect. Manfred, I think, spoke to us about the traceability and data schemes that are coming up. It was very informative to me, thank you. But I know they also work there around business models and cooperative platforms. So while the work is going on the value chain, I think this example we saw is building data to, as another enabler of sustainability standards in that value chain. In Pakistan, again, you'd see there's a focus on traceability. There's also cold chain regulations and inspection systems. The last one is really a networking and partnership for technology transfer. So more of a South-South and triangular cooperation. These are kind of internationally or external market-oriented examples. On the next slide, at the same time, we see we've had some work in West Africa that's looking at sanitary and phytosanitary norms, as well as investments linking with our investment networks. The last one is I highlight the example of South Sudan and Sudan Coastal, which is really looking at local production systems and again, building infrastructures, upgrading designs and business models there, and also linking with the academia and policy agencies in terms of resource management, where data in these specific cases is really, really a challenge. So what best with this, on this background, just to give us a snapshot of what UNIDO is working on, and then what the prior speakers have really, kind of shared in terms of what is evolving in this space. We see in the first place an opportunity for advancing traceability schemes, as shown by many of these examples I shared, but again, challenging ourselves to see how these can be tailored to small-scale fisheries actors. We're finding a model that we're calling a platform cooperatives. You'll see on the next slide, sorry for preempting, but platform cooperatives is really, really interesting because we see that the issue of data is speaking a lot about the internet, or we're learning about concepts like the Internet of Things. We see platform cooperatives as opening an opportunity for what we're calling an Internet of Services. So I'll speak as I wind up, and there's also creating models that generate data, that evolve given the conditions of what good data should be, and then of course standards and regulatory practices. On the way forward, I think I've picked on many of these points, so adjust partnerships, especially in the areas we do of capacity building, like training and skills development, scale up implementation to go to small scale fishes given their numbers. I've spoken about the third point on the Internet of Services. This is very interesting and would be happy to develop it, as well as to organize follow-up topical sessions, particularly focusing on post-service and market end segments, as I've said. Thank you so much. I want to reiterate that UNIDO is really pleased to be part of this discussion, and going forward, we are committed to enhancing accessibility, linking to institutional innovations, and fostering empowerment and inclusion to benefit from big data. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Juliet. Thank you very much for showing us how we can try to apply more these type of technologies, and also the approach on how they can even improve our efficiency and our support for countries. I will now go directly to the questions. Yeah. The first question is for Luis. Yeah. Luis, data collection in small-scale fisheries is typically poor because the data are often scattered and in different formats. How can deployment of Internet of Things improve the reporting, quality compliance, and access of smallholders to global value chains and markets?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question, because I have a kind of cutting out of the connection.
Okay. Data collection in small scale fisheries is typically poor because the data are often scattered and in different formats. Yeah. How can the deployment of technologies like Internet of Things improve the reporting, quality compliance, and access of smallholders to global value chains and markets?
Okay, great. Thanks for the question. First of all, the fact of using technologies will allow us to have a kind of standard format. So as the technology will be, let's say, adapted to the kind of information we're looking for and adapted to the kind of platform we're pretending to use to interpret that information. So first of all, it will standardize the format of transmitting and receiving the information. And let's say to doing so in the right way, what we need first of all is to understand what we're using right now. As most part of the time, we're using kind of Excel files and maybe Words templates. So first of all, try to understand the kind of information we have on those files, try to develop or maybe adapt technologies that are already in the market to provide that level of information and then automatize that to have it in a platform that is able to add the right value and add the right interpretation of the data.
Okay, thank you. I will continue with the other question. This is for Mr. Harrison. Are today's fisheries and aquaculture farming ready to reap the benefits of digitalization? And what kind of skills will they need in short, medium, and term to remain competitive?
Thank you very much for that question. Well, fishers and farmers I mean, I can talk about this for the whole world. In fact, that most of the fishers and aquaculture farmers are really ready to reap the benefits. I think as long as the benefits are clear to them, they want to take advantage of it. But there are some concerns that are quite important, because some of the times it becomes very difficult for the farmers to embrace these technologies because of the costs that are involved. So it is important that the costs come down. Another issue is that these technologies are very many. Sometimes, you know, they come, many companies and innovators come with new innovations, and it becomes very difficult for farmers even to choose what they need to use at any given time. And also, it is also important for the farmers to have the skills that are required for them to be to access and use these things effectively. The problem is most of the fishers and farmers, and well, I mean, especially fishers, are not very well educated people. So it is a big challenge for how they can actually use this technology. And so it will be important for innovators to think about making it easy to use these things by maybe plug and play kind of thing. And of course, this means that we cannot keep abreast with the technology. We need to have some kind of you know, order that allows the farmers to be supported and empowered to make right choices. And also that we have many actors coming together, not every innovator working alone. It cannot work like that. So it is important to have a multi-pronged focus of the many innovators, which could actually mean that we need to have policies that are good and effective.
Okay, thank you. Manfred, how can digital platforms help small-scale producers and processors to meet quality standards and access international certifications to enter into their markets?
First, yes. Thank you, Alejandro. Yeah, it all starts with digital identities, a digital profile for farmers. So basically put them on a map. And all of it obviously or eventually will be third-party verified. We did so for about 300,000 farmers already in Indonesia, including some 10,000 farmers in fisheries and seaweed. And through those applications, the farmers have access to digital access to knowledge, to prices, and they receive feedback on quality. So they deliver the seaweed to a buying station, the quality will be measured and also entered into the system, and the system basically calculates on a base price according to the quality standards, the price paid to farmers. So there is 100% transparency to the farmers in terms of quality. No more complaints about the price. If they deliver bad quality, there will be a deduction, and it's purely transparently put on paper in the end. Quality and certification instantly should also trigger premiums So it's not only deduction for bad quality, it should really also benefit the farmers if they comply with standards and certification, traceability, and quality, that they get a premium payment above market price eventually, and therefore they getting access to international market through these applications. And those applications, these systems include as well an internal management system for any kind of certification, fair trade, woods, rainforest and the plantation management, or fisheries and seaweed standards. So the certificate holder has access to all the digital profiles to complete the requirements for the chain of custody.
Great. Juliet, how can developing countries take a gender responsive approach to smart fisheries and aquaculture in general? Yeah, and how can they help reduce the constraints women face, particularly in terms of accessing productive resources, financial capital, and knowledge?
Thank you. Yes, indeed, we note that what we're calling smart fisheries and aquaculture solutions can and should take a gender responsive approach, and if they did, the benefits would be better in terms of food production and income generation. So first of all, we're arguing that developing countries to proactively target the different groups of the value chains. Secondly, we also specifically asking to address technology and technological divides as they've been had. I mean, the drivers for these divides are diverse. They could be cost, as you know, they've been highlighted by previous speakers. So these are the two very concrete actions where we say, yes, there should be a gender responsive approach, and technology divides in particular should be looked into. More concretely, we also see that the second part, how can you help reduce the constraints that the women face? Keep in mind that women are also the biggest actors in small-scale fisheries across the value chain. Usually they are referred to as in processing segments or post-harvest segments. No, globally estimates indicate up to 15% are in fishing. Women actually, they are women fishers. Then of course the percentage get higher in the post-harvest processing and marketing operations. So it makes a lot of viability to reduce or mitigate the constraints in these sectors. So from this interaction, we're picking very concrete actions. The first one we'll present will be basically, in the past weeks, we've been interacting with our field office networks and other partners to make sure to request that fisheries discussions, and especially gender mainstreaming in this specific question, is really brought out to the focus of development program actors, but also to governments and and the private sector. Yeah. So from this perspective, we could already consolidate this discussion and share a brief, could be a policy brief or a discussion paper that we can send through to our networks. That's more on the advocacy side, if you wish. We also want to make sure that technology innovations and production systems are made available and accessible to women. We have many examples from other approaches that UNIDO does to reach and divide and mitigate constraints of women. I think we can draw from those and leverage, fisheries. We also want to see stronger linkages to institutional innovations. I think it's a recap of my last slide. So institutional innovations, but that is where women are actually represented in production systems. It's surprising actually that even in the projects and programs that I've highlighted, and I don't want to challenge us, you'd see very little engagement of women in some of our initiatives, just because of the divide, the gender, kind of divide that happens. So you'll see institution capacity building programs, even see, interventions like training, where the participation and inclusion of women is not there. Harrison comes from a strong research background, and probably also Louis, and they know how this is a problem in fisheries particularly, that women are not in science and innovation and research initiatives. The entire aquaculture leap, I think, really left even the little, group that I had been part of in the early times. So then finally, I also emphasize empowerment and inclusion drivers, and we can share a bit on those.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Juliet, for this very nice answer. Yeah, I will continue with Luis. Considering past and new initiative aiming to promote the integration of this type of digital technologies, what measures are being taken for ensuring the interoperability? And this is an important challenge, yeah, between different systems. Are current standards in the sector fit for purpose, or how they are doing?
Sure, thank you. So it depends on what we're considering here. We can speak about interoperability in terms of following the vessel tracks. For instance, we can imagine, say that we have different providers of vessel monitoring systems, and that we need to integrate that data in a fisheries monitoring center, which is normally able, let's say, to process all the data with all the big data configuration. This is something that is already done in terms of codec. What we call codec are different formats that are integrated already in the fisheries monitoring center, allowing, let's say, the different providers of VMS to fully, let's say, do their job, which is develop technologies for tracking monitoring center that is completely independent of that furniture and is able to process all the different codec and then try to add value to that data. So this is the way of proceeding. Let's say, have a common sense, have a common share of the information that every provider, manufacturer is able, let's say, to share their format to be integrated in a FMC. So the FMC can integrate everything and basically by running analytics, do key KPIs, to take the best decisions. But one format for the VMS. Then there is the issue still there when we want to combine other kind of data, because we need to have in mind that in FMC, we're not only integrating VMS data, we're also integrating oceanographic data, we're integrating catches, we're integrating even what we call AIS, we could integrate radar information. So all that amount of data is coming from different formats. But basically, this is the power of the big data, is having, let's say, different formats and integrating them into a platform that is able, let's say, to provide added value to all that. So just to give a clear answer is that we need to segment each interoperability that we're looking for, and then ask the different providers, let's say, to collaborate so we can have the power of integrate everything.
Excellent. Thank you, Luis, for this explanation. Yeah, Harrison, what policies and regulatory frameworks are needed to maximize the impact of systems like the one you mentioned, Pelagic, while addressing major issues like trust, identity, privacy, protection, safety, and security?
Thank you, Alejandro, again for that question. Well, I mean, the pelagic system is the one we have chosen there to ask about is really a very good example, because we actually entered into a problem when we are using this, this system in real life. Some of the governments that we approached are very unwilling to cooperate, because you're saying, we don't know what you're going to do with this data. We don't know the channels where you hosting this data, and so on. So this becomes a big concern for governments as well as the fishermen and farmers themselves. In this case, it was the fishermen that are worried about losing their privacy, that everybody knows where they are at any given time. That makes it very difficult for them to maneuver. And the issue of integrated, the issue of IUU fishing, which is a big menace. And sometimes these people are also, culpable in this area. Also, sometimes they throw away bycatch and so on. And if you put cameras in the system, it's very easy for them to become very, very difficult for them to escape. The same thing is happening with, aquaculture as well. So it's aquaculture people are worried about taxation, because sometimes they feel like they are being targeted by governments to get more money, while other farmers and nobody bothers about them. So one of the things that is required to happen here is that, you know, the governments must work very closely with the farmers to ensure that the policies are conducive to the technology development first. Then it is also important to have the farmers and the fishers involved, that at any given time they are made aware about what is going on. The other thing is that governments have, of course, they are custodians of many things. The data that we get out of this should be seen to be useful for the government, because the government are able now to control and monitor the fisheries and so on. So I would say that we have a very good chance of making these systems very useful and have a very good impact, because we need them. Like, you know, we have talked about what is happening in Indonesia, where the first step is to record all the information about these farmers and fishers, to ensure that we know who they are, where are they. Again, this is important, but people want, you know, like sharing a mobile phone, which is required for this kind of thing to happen. We have to have you know, permission from the farmers. So what we are saying is, let the farmers and fishers know the advantages and make them ready. Give them support, for example, what I mentioned about capacity building, and then of course you will have people understand what you're doing. And I think this is a way to make it happen. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much, Harrison. Manfred, deploying tailored digital solutions does not ensure that target users will accept it, yeah, and integrate it as part of their main activities. What can you tell us from the lessons learned during the implementation of the tools that you were mentioning in your presentation?
The farmer to set them up the profile, they get some training, that's all good, but in the end, to continuously use these applications, there has to be an added value. So if they can access premium markets, they will continuously use those applications. That's absolutely clear. But where does that premium market come from, right? So the suppliers, the buyers from those farmers, they have to pass on an added value. Now, they will not take this out of their own pockets. So who's going to provide it? We succeeded to get 1 or 2 multinational companies on board to buy sustainable, also traceable seaweed. It's not even certified, just traceable. But they pay down the supply chain the cost of the application. They pay the software as a service. So the traders, the collectors, they get it for free. So they don't have to pay for it. So hurdle number 1 is solved. So it doesn't cost them. But in the end, the farmers will have questions. Why do you want to know who am I? My family members, how many kids I have, where are my farms? All these millions of questions we have, right? It's not for free. And a little bit an added value, it's absolutely, I think, necessary in those supply chains to keep sustainable, traceable supply chains in place, where we do not cut out middlemen. It still needs someone to bring the produce from the farm to the factories, but to streamline it, make it more transparent, and the profits at each level has to be transparent as well. And if anyone in the chain doesn't make a profit, there will be fraud. So it's all about money in the end. We failed in certain areas to bring the suppliers on board because their buyers were not willing to pay a cent more for a traceable kilo of seaweed or a traceable fish. So there has to be a change on the market as well. In Europe, in the US, in the developed world, where everyone talks about saving the world and stop this and stop that, there has to be a 50-cent price tag on a cup of coffee if you want to have it deforestation free, child labor free, or whatever free they come up with. So it's about transparency down to the farmers and has to be integrated into supply chains, and the digital solutions just help to make it transparent.
Okay, thank you, Manfred. I may add some things here also as well. I think it's good you mentioned like that. However, in our understanding, having the economic driver, is the most important one. However, at the same time, we also try to get also benefits. Yeah, inclusivity, sustainability is also important. Yeah, if we look at on the way that the planet has been doing and the replenishing of resources, etc. So it's also important to consider that. Yeah. So then I go for the last question, Juliet. Traditional farming models have become unattractive for young people. Yeah. How can the transformation from traditional labor-intensive farming to a smart farming promote the participation of youth in fisheries and aquaculture value chains? Again, you need to unmute.
Thank you. It's the time on the day. So an interesting question, because anyhow, the uptake of farming and including smart farming has not taken off so well with the youth in all contexts. And now we're looking at fisheries and aquaculture in specific. So I take from the prior responses, I think we need to look at more clarity of benefits of smart farming, and this should be targeted to the groups that target, that generate and, own these benefits. That would be, the general kind of how of, my response. I also want to mention that in contrast to the discussion I had on women inclusion, the situation of youth is not so different. The difference is, I believe, in the timing, that we're talking about a solution that's more adapted to youth uptake than to the other target groups where, we've looked at the young people. They say they're tech savvy and don't know what that means. And so that would be one advantage that could be looked at in this case. In the case of fisheries and aquaculture operations, I also note that it's not so much the issue of labor intensity, but smartness. I think that should be emphasized in clarifying the benefits. Smartness, to give you an example, in one project where we have a fish processing improvement, the aquaculture improvement, even if it is small and emerging in this context, is really taken up so quickly and so interestedly by the youth. Why? Because this is a segment where young people are not going to be told to go fishing to second guess if they will, if they'll have a catch. It's science-based, it's production-based. So we're seeing some good models there that we probably could consolidate and promote to really spur the involvement of young people. So clarity of benefits and tailored models that can attract all the other services like financing, skills training, and other benefits. I think that
Excellent. Excellent, Juliet. Thank you very much. Yeah. With this, I would like to thank you, all the panelists, Luis, Harrison, Manfred, and Juliet. I wish, I really acknowledge all the good examples and the answers that you have provided us. I would like, now we are almost closing, I would like to remind all those that has been attending to this session that we will make the presentation available afterwards for everyone. And also we will respond to all the questions that we have received so far. I would like also to take the opportunity to invite all of you again for our next session. I think that one will be very interesting as well. We will be talking about artificial intelligence, yeah, in also another value chain where UNIDO is very active, and among other technologies. And with that, we are ready to close the session. Thank you again for being here with us all today, and really wish you all of you the best. Thank you very much.